Sawadee ka! Welcome to Hot Thai Kitchen. So today I am making one of the most beautiful things I've ever made. So beautiful, in fact, that it's considered royal cuisine. So this is inspired by recently where I did a live demo with Chef Farm where he demoed how to make bird dumplings. I'll link to that video below. But this recipe is similar except instead of birds, we are making beautiful flowers. So these are called Chor Muang. Chor means a bouquet and Muang means purple. And once you're done, it's going to look just like that. Now, honestly, this is not something you want to do on a Wednesday night. This is something that you will do for a special occasion. It is a lot of work and it takes practice. And for many of you, this is not something that you'll ever do, but I think it's a really interesting study of Thai cuisine. Every once in a while, we do something, a little more complex, a little more elaborate, just as a part of understanding Thai cuisine as a whole. All right, let's get started. So we're going to make a really delicious pork and peanut filling. I mean, this filling is so good. I just eat it with sticky rice on its own if you halfway through give up on making the dumplings, which I've done before. Okay, so I'm gonna start with toasted white sesame seeds, and I'm gonna just lightly crush. Okay, so just like that. And then this one is a must-have. You have to have peanuts. So I've got some roasted peanuts here, and I'm just gonna grind this up until they're sort of mealy, not completely powder, definitely not peanut butter. I'm going to stop here. I mean, there's going to be some chunks bigger than others. That is okay, but you definitely don't want really big pieces. It's going to be interfering with your ball forming, as you will find out later. So the next thing I'm going to make is what we call sam gleu, which means 3 friends. And it's basically the Thai mirepoix. It's the base herbs that go into so many different dishes, starting with white peppercorns. And I'm going to grind that up into a really fine powder. Okay, so now, once it's fine and beautiful like this, in goes garlic and cilantro stems, which traditionally would be cilantro roots, but I can't find it, so stems will do just fine, and we want to get that all into a fine paste. Okay. Ooh, and that smells good. You want to get it quite fine, definitely no big chunks there. So that's basically it for prep. Let's get cooking. So I've got some lean ground pork here, and you do want lean for this because as you cook, if it's not lean, you get a lot of oil separation. And you can also use chicken instead if you don't eat pork for some reason. And now here's my little trick. I'm going to add my fish sauce to the pork, and then I mash it all together because this helps break up the pork into sort of smaller pieces, and it makes it a lot easier to prevent big chunks of pork from cooking together once you're in the wok. Because one of the things, again, that we don't want is we don't want chunky filling, because chunky filling, you'll have a hard time forming it into little balls. This also breaks it from the little weird tube shapes that sometimes ground meat comes in from the grocery store. You definitely don't want tube pork. A little bit of oil in there, not too much. Okay, and the 3 friends go in. And then you want to saute this low and slow. Oh, also onions. I've got some diced onions that I also want to add. So low and slow, and you want to cook this until the onions are translucent and become really, really soft. So really take your time with this part. If it's sticking a little bit, you can definitely deglaze. My onions are soft now. I'm going to add my pork. And again, you want to keep the heat low because you want a lot of time to break up the pork so that it does not chunk up on you. And just kind of like chop the pork up with your spatula to prevent things from clumping up. Okay, so once the pork is mostly cooked, I'm going to add the most important ingredient in this, and that is palm sugar. And yes, I am adding what looks like a lot of palm sugar, and this will end up being like a sweet, savory kind of feel. It's a sweet, savory dumpling, but it has a prominent sweet note. But the sugar is so important in keeping it sticky. If you don't add enough sugar, it will not hold together and you'll have a hard time making the actual dumplings. And it's delicious. Like, you'll see what I mean. It's like sweet, salty, just so good. And you want to use palm sugar for this. If you don't have it, I guess light brown sugar would do, but definitely not white sugar. You want some flavor in there. And I'm going to cook this for quite a while until all the sugar is dissolved and the liquid dries up. Okay, so my sugar is basically all dissolved now. I'm going to add my peanuts and sesame seeds, and that will help sort of dry up everything a little bit. But you still want to keep this going till it's not only really dry, but you want the sugar to start to caramelize a little bit, and this mixture will turn a nice dark color. Okay, I am happy with this. It's a darker brown now. It's dry, it's sticky. Now let's give it a taste. Ooh, hot. Oh, that's good. Oh, it's perfect. I think this is my best one yet. All right, so now I'm gonna let this cool completely. In fact, I'm gonna put it out on the balcony because it's so cold today, because I want it as cold as possible. All right, so the filling has cooled and it's sticky now. And what we're gonna do now is form them into little balls. Okay, so for each dumpling, you wanna get a ball about 6 to 7 grams. It's good if you have a scale, but if you don't, you can also just do a little bit more than a packed teaspoon. 8, a little much there. 6 or 7, like if you get it to 7, it's totally fine. And then you're gonna pack it into a little ball. Pack it as tightly as you can so it doesn't come apart. There you go, that's it. And then you repeat the process until you're out. This recipe makes about 40 pieces. So you're gonna do this 40 times. And after a while, you'll get really good at estimating how big they are. And if it's not a perfect ball, it's okay as long as it holds together, because that's what matters. So you can pick one up and put it in the dumpling. So I've only made 15 because that's all the time and patience I have for right now. And this isn't even the hard part, okay? So while we make the dough, I want to keep this in the fridge so it stays as cold and as solid as possible. All right, let's make the dough, which is the hard part of this recipe. So first we're gonna make the purple water to dye our dumplings into muang dumplings. And the color comes from butterfly pea flowers, and that is PEA, not PEE, as has been previously misunderstood. So these are just blue, bright blue flowers. I can only find them dry here, and this is like $7, really expensive. At my house in Thailand, they literally grow, like new flowers come out every single day. So it really hurt me to have to buy this, but you can get it online, or I guess you can use food coloring if you wanted to, but this is the traditional part. So what I did was I took the dry flowers and I soaked them in hot water, hot off the boil water. And after about 10-15 minutes, they give up a really beautiful color. And now I want to strain that. And you want to press out as much water as you can, because this is a measured amount of water. And the water is going to be sort of like bluish than it is purple. I know it looks purple right now, but trust me, it's gonna be bluish than purple. So what you want to do is make it really, really purple by adding some lime juice. So the nature of the pigment is it turns purple in acidic situations and it turns blue in basic situations. So to turn this purple, we have to add lime juice, and you want it more purple because once you add all the flour, it will turn back a little bit into blue, as you see, because I guess I didn't know this before, but flowers, I guess, are a little bit basic. So just watch this magic happen. Lime juice is going in. You can do lemon juice. Ooh, and look how much more reddish it turns now. And if you're looking at it and they'll go, okay, that's way too reddish, don't worry. It will not stay like this. So the main flour that we're going to use for this is rice flour. This regular rice flour comes in a red bag at the Asian grocery store. This is going to make it tender, but we want to add other flours to make it a little bit chewy and elastic. And I am going to add some arrowroot starch. So arrowroot starch in Thai, we call it bang tao yai mom, and it's pretty hard to find, but I have found that like health food stores, like Whole Foods, things like that, they do have that in their flour section, like places with a lot of gluten-free flour options. And arrowroot gives a nice elasticity to the dumplings. You can also do tapioca starch, which is a lot easier to find. You can get that at Asian grocery stores. The difference is small, so you don't have to like buy this if you don't want to, but I do find having made both, I like the arrowroot texture just a little bit more. It's a little bit more elastic, more tender, I should say. Okay, so all that's going in. And then we're also going to add a little bit of glutinous rice flour, which is the green bag at the Asian grocery store. Do not get those two confused. And this also will give a tenderness, sort of like mochi. And this sort of magical combination of 3 different flours will give the texture that we want, okay? You can do it with just the rice and tapioca or arrowroot, but the texture is just not as nice. So I want to give that a stir with a mini whisk. And no sugar, no salt, no seasoning whatsoever in this dough. All the flavor is coming from our filling. So now what I want to do is add our purple water to this. And you want to make sure this isn't like hot anymore because you don't want it to cook right here. So lukewarm is fine. And give that a stir. And just watch, it's going to turn a little bit more to the blue side of purple. That's why you want to make the water more purple than blue. And you want to make sure there are no lumps, so really take the time to stir, 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 mix, 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 mix. And to add a little bit of fat to the dough, I'm going to add some coconut milk. Keep it a little bit more luscious. Nice, that's a great color. Better than my water at home. Your water is better for this. Okay, so now I'm going to strain this because I want to make sure there's absolutely no lumps, especially because I added lime juice. There's always a little bit of lime pulp, so I want to strain all of that. So right now we've got a batter. Can't make dumplings with batter, so we're going to cook this until it turns into a dough so we can work with it. I'm using a non-stick pot. Non-stick is better. It'll just kind of allow the dough to really just fly right off. You can do it with stainless steel. You just have to be diligent with scraping a little bit. And then I'm going to turn the heat on, just on medium low. You want it to cook slowly so you have time to mix the cooked bit and the uncooked bit together more evenly. You do not stop stirring. This is not like, oh, let's go over here and answer a phone call. No, you stay and you are slave to the stove until this is done. But it's not very long, like 5-6 minutes. And you see the batter almost instantly starting to clump up at the bottom. So your job is to just stir and scrape. You're incorporating the cooked bit into the raw bit. Okay, and then the cooked part will start to look a little bit translucent. And so your job is to flip and turn and really like mash the cooked bit into the raw bit. If it's happening faster than you like and then you're panicking, just lift it off the flame a little bit like I'm doing now. And then just take your time working off heat. Now go back onto the stove. So you want to get this to a point where it's no longer wet looking. So imagine you have to roll this into a dough and wrap it around a filling. So if it still looks wet, like mud, that's not possible, right? But you don't want to get it fully cooked either, because if it's fully cooked, then it's really hard to work with. Then it's too stiff. So it does require a little bit of experience. Okay, that's good. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put it on my work surface here. Woo. And then I'm going to knead this until it's smooth. And it's going to be a little hot, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. And you just want to get a more or less smooth dough. Just fold it over itself and push it out a few times, and that's it. You don't need to get it super smooth. By the time you form it into a dumpling, the dough will have sort of kneaded itself. Whew. This needs to be covered by a very slightly damp towel or plastic wrap. Otherwise, it'll dry up and become really difficult to work with. Okay, here's the most difficult part, turning them into flowers. Before we move on, I'd like to tell you about today's sponsor, Skillshare. So if you like my videos, it probably means that you love to learn new things and you love to create. So I think you're going to love Skillshare, which is an online learning community with thousands of classes on topics like photography, interior design, cooking classes, and even how to build a YouTube channel. Most classes are less than 60 minutes long and they're made up of short lessons. So even for a busy mom like me, it's easy to just watch a few lessons a day and before you know it, you're done. One class I really like is called The One Yeast Dough You Need to Know by Julia Turshen. And I like that it gives you a really solid foundation for understanding bread baking, which is perfect if you're just getting started. So if you want to learn a new skill or explore a new passion, check out Skillshare. And the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. And then after that, it's less than $10 a month for an annual subscription. So to turn this into flour dumplings, we're gonna need some tools. So these are tweezers made specifically for Chor Muang. And yes, they are hard to find. You can probably find them online. I'll try to look for some links of some online stores. But again, as I said, this is probably not gonna be doable for some of you, but it's a good study of Thai cuisine. And also, you can just make balls if you just wanna know what it tastes like. You don't have to turn them into little flours. So, this bowl of rice is rice flour mixed with a little bit of tapioca flour. Basically, you want about the same kind of flour that you use in the dough. For the dough balls, you want to keep it covered so it doesn't dry out, and you want to weigh, each piece should weigh 7 to 8 grams. So it's a little bit heavier than our filling. And I'm going to use my mini cleaver to cut a little chunk. And we'll see how much that weighs. And if I'm good at this, this should be 7, exactly. See, I've done this a few times. I'm by no means an expert, but I have done this a few times just to practice for this video. Okay, so now we're going to sort of press it out into a circular sheet, about 1.5 inches at this point. And then you want to make it to 2 inches by crimping only the edges. So basically what you want is for the edges to be thinner than the center because the edges are going to get bunched up at the end. So the end result should be at least 2 inches, a little bit more maybe. Now, our filling goes in, and then I'm going to bring the bottom up and pinch it all together, and then we're gonna flatten the bottom and get a bell shape. So I just tap the end where your seam was to flatten it so that our flour is on a flat, stable surface, just like that. And you got like a tiny little, almost like a straw mushroom shape or something. Don't worry about these little pleats. Once you turn into flowers, it'll all go away. I'm gonna dust the whole thing with a little bit of flour so that it doesn't stick to my tweezers. And then I'm gonna start tweezing. This is the hard part. This requires practice. Your first ones will be ugly, but that's okay. They will still be delicious. You want to dip your tweezers into the flour every 3 times that you tweeze, or as needed, because once you tweeze, you're going to lose some flour to the dough, and then this will start to stick to the dough. So I find that 1, 2, 3 dip, 1, 2, 3 dip is sort of my rhythm. Okay, go from the bottom and pull out a petal. Layer 1 and then layer 2. You kind of want to go in between, and I'm slanting my tweezers up a little bit. I have 2 different tweezers here, but you don't need 2, but if you have 2, I find in combination it turns out a little bit nicer. Oh no. If you're using just this one, you can finish the top by just pinching a couple on top, but this is where I like to bring on the second one that's smaller and do the final flower, final petals on top in sort of like a round shape. And that's it. Look how pretty these are. Oh my God, I'm so happy. Okay, so now this has to go on a steamer, which I forgot to prepare, so I'll be right back. Okay, now ever so gently put it in my steamer, and then we keep going. Yay! So 7 hours later, I've made 14 dumplings. I don't know, it's like 5 o'clock. It took a very long time. This is why it's a special occasion thing. You want to steam them, and it only takes 5 to 6 minutes to steam them, but you want to steam them right before serving. You can serve them room temp, but they're so much better when warm. And because we have 2 layers, maybe 6 to 7 minutes. If you're just doing 1 layer, 5 minutes will be good. Look at this. See little bits of flour there? That's probably I left too much flour, so you want to maybe like blow on it to get rid of extra flour. But that is okay, because what happens is once you brush the garlic oil on it, it goes away. So that's just extra flour that was left on the dumpling. Same here. And you want to brush the garlic oil on relatively soon after they come out, because they dry out quick. So you don't want to like let them sit and then put the oil on. Okay, serving time. Like, this wasn't enough work. There's more stuff you gotta serve them with. Okay, usually, because this is really doughy and heavy, and in Thai food, it's all about balancing, right? So you want to serve them with some fresh lettuce, green leaf lettuce. I got some cilantro. You can skip the cilantro if you don't like it. Oh, look how cute. Let's just do 5. It's a huge plate, but I feel like 5 is good for now. Oh, the fried garlic. You want to put the fried garlic, too much, just a little bit on top. A little sprinkling. Just to zhuzh it up a little bit, I'm going to place just a couple of chilies on here. And if you want to eat it spicy, you can slice little rounds of chilies and then put them on top. But you know what? It's enough work as is. All right. Shall we eat? Go with this one right here. I'm just going to use my hand. I can feel that dough so nice and elastic. Oh, I love that crispy garlic. You know what? It was a lot of work, but it is so good. Here, I just want to show you. You want the dough just thin enough to hold it together, but not thicker than necessary. And then you can sort of see around the outside that you can see the filling kind of through that translucent dough a little bit. That is what you are going for. I want to have my second bite with lettuce, because the lettuce really rounds it out nicely. So satisfying. The filling it's got a really nice sort of texture, because you cook that pork so much it almost hardens a little bit, so it's not like a smooth thing. So that's a great thing to counteract the smooth dough. And it's salty and it's sweet, and the filling itself is a little too much, but once you chew everything with the dough, with the garlic, it just balances out. And that texture of dough, I'm telling you, it's soft, but it's also got a bit of a bounciness and elasticity to it. So the mix of different flours is really important for this. So usually I would say, so I hope you give this a try, but for this I would totally understand if you don't ever give this a try, but I hope you found that interesting anyway, and maybe you can just make balls. Just don't even do the flour, just make dumplings balls, just you know, so you see what they taste like, right? So the written recipe will be on hotthai-kitchen.com, and if you haven't subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you don't miss an episode, and click the bell icon as well so you get a notification when I post a new video. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time for your next delicious Thai meal.